I think as Muslimin, we have a duty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this earth a peaceful place, a better place where everybody, Muslims and non-Muslims, can live in cohesion, in justice, in the peace that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to have. How do we get there? The elephant in the room is that basically the Muslim ummah must be united. This unity, nobody's speaking about. You go to millions of khutbahs, really the same rhetoric we've been hearing since you brought my age. The same rhetoric I've been hearing for the last, 30, 35, 40, 45 years, whatever it is. It's the same thing. Just make dua, put some sadaqah somewhere, and go to a protest here in the West, basically write your MP. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. Actually, the response of the Western leaders is pretty, as Shaykh Uthman said, is pretty ridiculous. It's very, very disgusting, to say the least, to be honest. So the Muslimin need to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and rely upon themselves. We need to put our hands together. We need to start calling for unity. We need to say that this ummah is one ummah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that this ummatukum ummatan wahida. Your Muslim nation is one. We're not Bengalis and Pakistanis and Egyptians and Lebanese. We're Muslim, period. There's no Muslim this and Muslim that. We've been dividing and bickering among each other. We can't even sit and talk. We always basically have dhann as-su' about each other. Such a population will never basically reach success. And today I'm speaking to all the youngsters in the ummah. Please don't repeat the same mistakes we've done. And I basically call out to all the imams, especially here in the West, that we need to do our job by teaching the ummah, by guiding the ummah, that there's path for success, there's path for making the Muslimin safe again, for Islam to basically become dignified again. And that's basically when we put our hands together. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it very clearly in the Quran. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُم. Meaning, obey Allah and His Messenger and do not fight amongst yourselves. Do not bicker amongst yourselves. Do not divide amongst yourselves. And if you do that, the natural common sense result to division is weakness and failure and humiliation. It's not magic, it's not secret recipe. We couldn't unite until today. It's been 100 years since the Ottomans have been beaten in World War I, and our lands from Morocco to Indonesia has been occupied by the great powers of the world. And nobody wants to discuss this anymore, it seems. Everybody just wants to say, well, focusing themselves, do your 5 daily prayers, you finish that, do your sunan, you finish that, do some recitation, you finish that, do a little bit more tajweed, and the blood of the Muslimin is honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be more worthy than the Kaaba.
Do you believe that a manifestation of it is a caliphate or a state of some sort that would militarily intervene to defend the Gaza? Is that what we're talking about here?
Who can save? Right now, basically, there's 10,000 people injured in Gaza. There's 3,000 killed in Gaza. Nobody can basically, like, look at the Egyptians. What are the Egyptians doing? They block the border.
Practically speaking,
it is the duty of the Egyptians to intervene and save the Muslims in Gaza. Whatever the solution is, whether basically to why are the Palestinians basically locked within that little cage? Basically, where is the Egyptian government to save them? Right? Why is the border between Gaza and Egypt blocked?
But some may be asking, how does that practically look like? In terms of the processes of how the international order works, what does Egypt militarily intervening look like in a global context?
If we consider that the Sisi government going to intervene, it's a dream. So let's not speak about dreams. What we need to do, what we need to understand is that the result of World War I have brought the people to power in all of our countries between Indonesia to Morocco that are not really basically serving the interests of the Muslimin and Islam. And it is upon us basically as Muslim Ummah, as 2 billion Muslims, to start speaking about the solution. The solution is that we need to live by our values. We need to live by our Islam from a legal perspective. And we have to unite amongst each other. This unity basically is a project. And this unity that we've lost 100 years ago cannot basically be recreated in 2 days or 3 months or whatever it is. And that, but see, what I'm trying to basically pinpoint here, Dilly, is that when we don't speak about the solution, this ummah going to continue for another 100 years of humiliation. What we need to do is basically
how does it practically look like? What does the solution practically look like?
It's very simple, basically. Well, you're not American, you're British.
Yeah.
So the Americans basically back in the 1700s kicked you guys out because they said, well, we need to unite and basically create something a little bit more reputable, dignified from their perspective. And they united the 13 colonies and they rebelled against the British colonialists, pushed them out, created something very great from their perspective, which is the United States of America. Why is the Europeans basically trying to create a European Union? Why is the Americans basically created a United States? Why is basically everybody trying to unite, and we as Muslims who are one people don't have this unity? What I'm saying directly, and hopefully by my voice is loud enough, is that people from Morocco to Indonesia must be unified in one structure, and that is basically the unity that we need to start speaking about, so it becomes a public opinion and becomes a public demand of the ummah.
But that's the thing, that no doubt all of the Muslim Ummah has been saying this. We've been saying we need to be united. I mean, I've traveled across the Muslim world, as have all of you, and you hear this everywhere. Like, this is a no-brainer, right? We all want to be united under one authority, under one hand, under one leader. And I've been to Indonesia, I've been to Malaysia, I've been to Pakistan, I've been in the Middle East and all of that. The problem gets to be, in my eyes, if you're talking about the bigger picture, right? Like, to me, and again, protesting hasn't done anything. Look at what protesting did for Tibet. People have been protesting for Tibet for I don't know how long, right? China doesn't care. Just expecting the UN and the US and this to do it, it's not working, because money, and that's what counts there, right? When you talk about the Muslim Ummah and being united and being one, it sounds great, but the problem gets to be is everybody's idea of unity is follow me. This is our big issue right now, right? Like some organization will pop up, some firqa will pop up, somebody will have this flag and that flag, and they'll be like, unity means follow me. And that's just not going to work, because everybody has their own political goals. Everybody has their own idea what Islam is. When we talk about making a change, one of the major problems we have are people jump the gun. Instead of really doing a grassroots work where you educate the Muslim Ummah, I mean, right now, how many Muslims, if you're watching and you're Muslim and you don't make your 5-time salah, this is the first problem you're beginning with. The Prophet ﷺ told, "Man tarku salah faqad kafar," and whoever abandoned the salah has verily for surely committed kufr. How much of our ummah doesn't even make the 5-time salah? We're talking about being united and taking sacrifices and moving forward. And I don't want to point out Egypt or any other country by name, because I'm not trying to throw blame on any particular people or countries or governments. But look at our movies, look at our industries, look at our look at our mindsets, look at the corruption in our country. It's worse than the West. The most corrupt countries in the world are Muslim countries, and that's something we have to fix. This has to be a return to the Kitab and Sunnah. This is the only thing that can unite us. So, to go back to the Quran, to go back to the Sunnah, to go back to Muslims caring about their religion.
So something I hear a lot is 95% of fiqh is ikhtilafi. What are these Muslims disagreeing upon? What are these Muslims, where is the bickering and the problem with their disagreements getting in the way? And if every Muslim in the world, were to establish salah, how does that from step by step lead to this ummah we want?
First thing, saying 95% of fiqh is ikhtilafi, I don't think that's actually a stat, because the majority of the major things we all agree on. I mean, there is no Muslim that I've ever met that said there's no 5-time salah, or Fajr is not 2 rak'ah, or Dhuhr isn't 4, or you don't pray between these times. The major things, even if you look at the basic arkan of salah, there may be ikhtilaf on some of them, but many of them, all the madhahib will agree together and so on. So I don't think that's true, right? I think this is something that people use who haven't actually studied. Secondly, the issue of ikhtilaf doesn't divide us within fiqh. I mean, for example, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, they weren't fighting each other. They weren't out there trying to disregard each other. Rather, when they met each other, they met, for example, Imam Shafi'i studied from Imam Malik. Imam Shafi'i had held views that Imam Malik didn't. And Imam Malik held views that Imam Shafi'i didn't, but that didn't divide them. So that's not really the issue. The issue gets to be that on the core components of Islam, like for myself, when you see Dilly, I was there with you in the UK, right? I'm not an online influencer, but I do give da'wah, and those videos are posted, right? Many people right now, people who say that la ilaha illallah, whatever, may disagree with me on certain issues, right? We may have disagreements in fiqh, we may have disagreements, but you will notice that I always try to keep this where I don't make videos against people. I don't make videos mocking people, right? Even if I make a video explaining an issue, like when me and Dr. Zakir Naik had an issue, we sat, we talked, we have a love for each other. We don't divide each other. We present our evidence. But we have many Muslims that are just sitting there right now, waiting for you to slip up just to get views of mocking you, right? So this is not an issue of ikhtilaf. Our ummah has this hasad right now that has to be taken out. And us establishing the salah, don't forget, don't underestimate the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not like again, when you talk about lobbies and things, there are two playing fields. One is that of the kuffar, and that is whoever has the money, the power, the lobby, they win. One is that of the Muslims. That is whoever has the nusrah of Allah wins. This is how Badr happened. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave nusrah. That's how the Fath of Mecca happened, from the nusrah of Allah. So when somebody leaves salah, when somebody leaves zakat, somebody takes rishwa and brings the la'na of Allah, who takes bribes and brings the la'na of Allah, this is where the nusrah goes away. One of the scholars, he said something very interesting, and it's not like a hadith or ayah, it's just a statement, but it was profound to me. He said that, in the 6-Day War, and if you know the history of Palestine and that you know about the 6-Day War, some of the people asked some of their scholars, what happened to the Malaika of Badr? And what happened to the Nusra that used to come in the time of the Prophet ﷺ? So this scholar, being a funny guy, again, this is not Quran hadith, this is a statement. He said the Malaika came, but when they looked at both sides, they didn't know which one was the Muslim, so they went back. When the Muslim army is not making salah, when the Muslims are not, and he following the Kitab and Sunnah, how do we expect the nusrah of Allah? So when Muslims go back to the religion, that's when they unite. When Muslims take the identity of I'm a Muslim, it has to come with iman. It doesn't come with, when you're lost drinking and trying to just make money in any which way, then that is lost, right? So you have to revive the ummah. You have to revive this love for the kitab and sunnah, about learning who were the Salaf al-Salihin, who were the Sahaba, who were the Imma, our role models, those that set that precedence, that united the Ummah. As Imam Malik said, the later part of the Ummah will not unite except what the earlier part was upon. When you see right now in America, there's millions of Muslims that don't even care what's going on there. This is very unfortunate, but it's a reality we have to deal with. In the UK, around, like we mentioned earlier, we have almost 2 billion Muslims, 2 billion almost, right? But how many are just lost right now? They're more worried about what's the next Netflix special coming out than they are about what's happening to our brothers and sisters. So there has to be a revival. There has to be a waking up that goes back to the Kitab and Sunnah, to the way of the Salaf al-Ummah, to the way of those great Salihin that set examples for us. I'm not saying that we don't address the issues going on. I'm here for that reason. I'm not saying that we don't take concrete actions, but actions have to be grassroots, because just talking and just saying is not going to do anything. I tell you something. One of the things with One Message Foundation is I was sick of sitting around and looking at the situation Ummah and not doing anything myself. I said, okay, what can I do as a person? Well, at least I can go out to the park and speak to people about Islam. Alhamdulillah, I said, let's do it. From that, well, alhamdulillah, we've had more than 3,000 people that have accepted Islam. When Muslims start taking that role that, okay, I'm not going to compromise on the Quran, I'm not going to compromise on the Sunnah, I'm not going to compromise on my principles and goals, I'm not going to sell out anything from the religion, but I'm going to start taking steps and I'm going to start calling people towards it, to back to the Quran and the Sunnah. This will make a major change.
Shaykh Uthman said basically that doesn't want to accuse any of these governments basically on anything. This is not. I don't agree with that. I think basically the Egyptians and the Jordanians and every Muslim country, especially those two, basically are responsible, and they are partners in the crime of killing the Muslims in Gaza and the Muslims basically in the Dhuffa in the West Bank. 100%. And this is our issue. Our issue is basically these tyrant rulers not moving a single finger to save our Muslim people. Period. Like it doesn't. Like you don't need to ask a sheikh. Then if you're waiting for a sheikh to answer you, this is a problem.
No, but
as a Muslim ummah today, we need to mobilize the whole resources to safeguard our honor and dignity. Period.
Can a Muslim nation intervene militarily without it necessarily being some kind of Islamic polity? Why cannot Egypt as it is, or Jordan as it is? We've seen historical examples of military intervention. We've seen Turkey intervene in Syria. We've seen Saudi intervene in Yemen. We've seen that Muslim countries today, nation states, do intervene when it's according to. But what I'm saying is that
since when, Dilly, this is a question. I'm almost basically gonna laugh. Since when a single Muslim, so-called Muslim governments basically intervene for the interest of the ummah? Since when? They never did, and they never will. Basically,
we're talking about military intervention. Not that
I think that's a very broad statement. Are you saying never in history? They never did in history?
No. In the modern history, basically after
World War. You have to be careful. Hold on.
Let me just finish my point, inshallah ta'ala.
Okay, go ahead.
Farooq, he asked me a question. I need to really basically at least respond if you don't mind. So today, basically, whether the Saudi regime, the Egyptian regime, the the Jordanian regime, every Muslim regime is fully responsible, period. And will they basically intervene? No. Who would expect them to intervene? They're actually blocking even basically people to help, or even send even aid.
So what are you saying then?
The Egyptians have blocked Gaza. The Egyptians have blocked medicine from Gaza. The Egyptians have blocked basic food from Gaza. So if we basically are saying, if we expect them to basically intervene further to save our people, it's not going to happen. And that's why it's very important to understand what we need is to unify the hearts of the believers. Now, Shaykh Uthman, I want to go back to what he was saying. He's saying, like, if a person doesn't pray, we need to make him pray. I don't think that is the issue. I think this is a red herring. I think the people already praying need to unify amongst themselves because they're divided. You brought up basically a claim, Shaykh Uthman, that basically everybody wants to unify everybody on their attitude or in their values or in their adoption or in their, their own way of thinking. And this is not correct. I think basically there's lots of people who just want to unify under Islam. Islam has two parts to it. There's qat'iyat and there's dhanniyat. The qat'iyat are the certain parts which are basically a specific portion of Islam. Nobody's going to differ that we have to pray 5 times a day and so forth. But the area of ikhtilaf, the area of difference in opinion is a substantial one. And this is where basically we as Muslim preachers and Muslims, imams and scholars and leaders need to understand that we need to allow each other to differ. What we have today is Sufis criticizing Salafis and Salafis criticizing Sufis and so forth. This divide amongst us will continue for a long time. We need to unify the heart and understand that basically there's certain issues we need to respect, that other Muslims have the right to have their opinions, and we need to put our hands together. And this is not happening. We need to resolve this issue and work towards basically replacing these leaders that don't care about the interests of Islam by electing ones that care about the deen, care about us as Muslims and care about the deen, period.
Hold on. I want to let guys 1 second
elect these leaders now.
Okay, 1 second.
They came in by force.
1 second.
So, all I want to ask is this. I didn't talk about and this applies. Shaykh Uthman, to be very brief. It's not that have Muslim countries militarily intervened for the sake of Allah, for the sake of the Ummah, but we have had examples where Muslim countries, for whatever reason, self-interest, foreign interest, external interest, they have moved, which means that they can move. Which means they can move.
Sure.
That's what I wanted to just say. It wasn't that I said that they intervened for Islamic reasons. I was saying that there are many examples where they have moved, albeit for whatever agendas that may not be aligned with Islamic revival. That's all I just wanted to say.
So just to be very clear, first and foremost, this is one of those things where people just want to pick somebody to throw blame on so we can sit there and shake our fist. These leaders, it's their fault, right? Where does the leader come from? Where does the tyrant come from?
Is it their fault? Let me finish. Hold on 1 second. I need to stop you here, basically.
I'll let you speak, didn't I? I allowed you to finish. So now you're going to give the same courtesy back. So where do leaders come from? To be honest, I mean, let's just be honest, right? Any country you take that has a dictator or a king or a tyrant or whatever you want to say, in the end, if he didn't have the military support, he wouldn't be there. Where does the military come from? The military is not like brought in from another country. It's the people of the same country. If the military wasn't from the regular people, then that military wouldn't have that mindset. Of course, foreign interests are going to play their part. They're going to bribe. They're going to bring interest. But in the end, the fact of the matter is that these leaders are a representation of us. We are corrupt as a ummah. We're just sitting there blaming these few people when the reality is we sitting there on the ground are corrupt. We have lost that aqidah, that iman, that yaqeen. This is the reality. And it's a very easy scapegoat to just be like the king of this country, the president of this country, and it's his country's fault. And while we're sitting here, all of us in the West, sitting here comfortably while we're just blaming people over there, not thinking that this is something that has to come from the people. When the people change, the governments cannot. You think we can elect an Islamic leader? You think they're going to allow that? Have you not been watching what's been going on in the world? Have you not seen what's going on in Pakistan? In any election that goes on where you're going to elect somebody that is beneficial, then of course there are those people that are, whether it's the military, whether it's the financial institutions who are tied with people outside, whoever it is, are going to take it out. What happened in Egypt earlier when they had their own elections and somebody came in power that people didn't like? What happened in other places? This is something that we're sitting in a world of just throwing blame. instead of taking responsibility as a ummah. Look, saying that people praying is not going to make a difference in the condition of the ummah, I'm sorry, this is something that you need to go check your and your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we have the obedience to the kitab and sunnah, no doubt, when we have our people making salah and zakat, because saying the people who are making salah need to be united, of course, no disagreement with that. But how many people are even making salah? Percentage-wise, I'm not just saying a million, 2 million. What I'm talking about from 2 billion Muslims. Go around the Muslim world and go see how many people. And the salah is just one example. It's because it's from the arkan of iman, the highest of ibadat. That's why I use it as an example. When we want to be united, we have to go to that which unites us, the kitab of Allah, the sunnah of Rasulullah. Then I'm going to make one more point. I actually have to go for da'wah, as I told Rami. When we say the word Salafi, what's the Salafi? This is not some kind of sect that people have made. Maybe some people take it that way, but that's not the meaning. And as I clarified on Dilly's show as well, we as Muslims sitting here, we all agree on the Quran. We believe it's a kalam of Allah. We believe it's the words of Allah. It should be followed. That's what a Salafi believes. We believe in the Prophet ﷺ. We believe that he is the last of the prophets. We believe that his sunnah, his way is better than anybody after him. That's a Salafi. We believe that the Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, radiallahu anhum, and the Sahaba, and those great tabi'un. Can I finish? Can I finish? Do you mind if I finish? Can I finish, please? Respectfully, I let you finish. Do you mind if I finish?
No, please finish. I'm just saying, basically, I want you to answer
cut
one
me out.
question before. No. There's no problem. You can continue. I'm just saying.
So, Jazakallah khair. Let me finish.
Yeah.
So, now, when we talk about those that were the best of generations, right? The Sahaba, the Tabi'un, the Taba Tabi'un, the ones who follow the Salihin from them, this is a Salafi, right? And from them there was khilaf. From them there were disagreements. That doesn't mean we make takfir on them. That doesn't mean you call them kafir. That doesn't mean, even if I don't agree with an approach of somebody else, that doesn't mean that I don't agree that they're Muslim, unless they do something that does kufr, right? I'm not saying that you have to follow my shaykh. I'm not saying that if you don't follow the shuyukh of my country, you're not Muslim, you're not Salafi. No, those are all misconceptions. But every Muslim should follow the way of the Salaf al-Salihin, the way of the Sahaba, the Tabi'un and Taba Tabi'un. If you follow Abu Hanifa, if you follow Malik, if you follow Shafi'i, if you follow Ahmad, if you follow those Imma, they were from those generations. So this is not like a like this one sect saying don't follow this sect. I know there are people that take it that way and they're wrong, and I disagree with that. And I've made that clear on Dilly's show as well. I'll let you ask that question before I leave, inshallah.
Well, I forgot the question, but anyway, that's why we're trying to have a conversation. But khair, inshallah. So when you say that, basically, when you said that you're blaming the ummah on these governments, this is it's totally rejected. I would reject this fully, akhi. You can't basically say because the ummah, there's certain people in the ummah who have low iman or they're not praying. It's our fault. No, it is the fault of those who are in power. And it is our
duty.
Who
put them in power?
But hold on, but now at least.
Go ahead.
But who put them in power is the colonialists, the British and the French and the Americans. Who put them in power? Like, why is this like still basically something that's a question? I believe that we as an ummah today, the leaders of the people who are already praying 5 times a day. I didn't say basically we should not basically get people to pray. That's all what I do for life, and that's what you do for life. But the question is, there's people who already are praying. Are they doing their job after the prayers, after they finish their zakat and siyam and their personal duties? We're supposed to be interacting with the military that you talked about. We're supposed to be interacting with the people in power. We're supposed to be interacting with the people of influence and giving them da'wah instead of just giving George and John da'wah. We're supposed to give the people who can actually hold the keys of change in these countries to change, so they can mobilize the resources of the ummah to bring change, right? So we can't just blame Abdullah and Zayd basically for the problems of the whole ummah. No, there's people in power, and those people are responsible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran said they're responsible. How do we basically get them off the hook? I don't understand that. And this is maybe my question for you. How do you basically?
Let me answer the
how
question.
Do you,
he asked me.
Let me just clarify the question.
Go ahead.
How do you get these people off the hook? You know what I'm saying?
Nobody took them off the hook. Hold on. Let me just answer the question. He asked me a question. Let me answer it.
Sorry.
Nobody took them off the hook. But do you think those colonial powers are sitting in Egypt and in Pakistan and these countries right now? Are they sitting there putting these people in power? Who's the people carrying the guns putting them in power right now?
Who's responsible right now, basically? The ummah.
Who's
for what?
there?
For not praying?
The ummah. Who's putting them in power right now? Who's standing with their guns and tanks? Is it the British?
It is the people in power, the military itself, the tyrants
The
themselves.
military. Where did the military come from?
Yeah, Shaykhna, it's not
From another
doesn't work like
country?
that.
They were brought in by the British? They were brought in by the Americans?
So no, the Ummah put them there, basically. This is what you're saying.
Thank you.
No, that's not
what I'm
correct. This is even crazy to even say that. These
Look,
people
where
were
did the
installed,
military come from?
they're installed by the colonialists.
So you're saying, let me just clarify this.
There's
for
bad
example,
people.
the British or
let me
the
give you
French.
the answer. Let me give you the answer so we don't speculate. There's no reason. We're sitting
Go ahead.
with each other. There's no
I'm
speculation
listening.
needed. The people who basically inherited the powers of the colonialists were very bad apples in the Ummah. They are the ones who are holding power. What are you going to do about that? It's not as if basically, Zayd and Abdullah say, oh yeah, I approve the evil people to be on top of the military or on top of the government. That doesn't make sense. What we're not doing right, Shaykhna, is basically we're not interacting, giving da'wah to some of these people. Every person who's
I think we should.
Every person right now who is let's say lacking iman or is an evildoer from the people in power in the Muslim world could be given da'wah and converted to become a better person. But nobody from the mashayikh is making this a priority.
That's not true. That is not true. I'm sorry. You made it clear. We cannot make claims that are not true. I know mashayikh that go visit leaders of countries that give them da'wah. So for you to say nobody's doing that is wrong. You have made a statement against ulama that's wrong. Once again, I agree with you that
priority, Sheikh. I didn't say they didn't do it. I said priority.
It's their number one priority for some of these issues. It's their number one priority. It's their number one priority. I know those ulama. It's their number one priority. I know ulama that their number one priority is they go and meet with generals, they go and meet with leaders of countries and call them towards unity, towards Quran. I know them personally.
And this
just
is
because they're not making YouTube videos.
Enough.
So for you to say that nobody's doing that is wrong.
Everyone, stop talking, everyone. We started by saying people are bickering and fighting and so on and so forth, disagreeing. And that seems to be exactly what's happening here as well. And it's very disheartening for me to see because, I think everybody just wants this to end. So now the question is, how the heck is this going to end? I want to ask a genuine question, inshallah, not to take too much time. Something that stuck with me, the Battle of Badr came through Nasrullah 100%. But my question would be, and this is with all due respect, but like based on what you're saying, were the Muslims just praying and then like the Nasr of Allah came, or like what were the steps the Muslims took? Because the Nasr of Allah in that case came because the Muslims fought.
So once again, I'm 100% with making actual action. But the question is, was there anybody in Badr that wasn't making salah? That's the problem that we're not looking at. It's not just salah. I'm not saying, and like I clarified already, I just use salah as an example, right? Because it's one of the arkan of iman, one that many ulama said if you leave it makes you kafir and so on. So the point there being, it's so important from the bodily ibadat, and if the majority of the ummah is not doing it, we have a problem. In Badr, the iman of the Sahaba, this was their greatest weapon. Their iman, it wasn't that they had the best swords. It's not because they had more numbers, right? And when we look at Qadisiyah, the Islamic history is something we should all study. In Qadisiyah, when the Muslims were going and they were going to cross a river under Sa'd ibn Waqqas radiyallahu anhu, they didn't say who's stronger, who's this. They said, has anybody committed a major sin? Pay attention. They asked them, has anybody committed a major sin? Lying is a major sin. Backbiting is a major sin. Drinking is obviously a major sin, right? And the whole army said no. The whole army said, we have not committed a major sin. So they said, then we will cross over water. This is our history. This isn't fairy tale. This is what happened. The Nusra of Allah came in an unseen way. To the Sahaba, they weren't even Anbiya. Why? Because they stayed away from sin. Today, we have taken that lightly. When I said about Salah, our brother, like he said, this is ridiculous, right? And I'm telling you, this is our problem. We're looking at this from the aspect of politics only. I'm not against political any involvement of Islamic ideology within the Quran and Sunnah. Of course, we have an Islamic method of governance, we have an Islamic method of how to rule, and I am 100% pro giving nasiha to those leaders and to those military personnel, as Shaykh Mustafa Muhammad was saying. I'm 100% with that. And I know ulama, to say that there are no ulama making it a priority is a lie, and I'm not saying you were lying. I'm saying that because you may not have known about this, because I know ulama personally that this is their number one priority. That's what they do. They're not famous. They're not, but alhamdulillah, they're people of knowledge. They go sit with leaders, privately give them nasiha. They go sit with military leaders, they go sit with kings, and they're making it their priority. And again, that should be done. I agree. But to think that we're still blaming the colonial powers for our situation today is not going to help us. Yes, they ruined a lot of things for us. They put people in power that were dhullam. I realize that. But today, we as a ummah have to wake up and start taking our own responsibilities. Just blaming others is not going to fix it. We have to, if my brother's in the army, if my father's in the army, if I'm in the army, and I get a rule that, hey, go and kill a Muslim, I have to go tell them, look, there is no obedience to the makhluk and disobedience to the khaliq. Don't do it. And when the Muslims stand up and say, you know what, I'm not going to take that order to imprison a alim and torture him, then that's when it's going to stop. Otherwise, getting rid of one tyrant just brings another tyrant. And we've seen this repeatedly in the Muslim world. One revolution comes and brings somebody, they kill Sadat and they get somebody worse. So again, we have to fix the core of the issue. I'm 100% saying that Muslims need to give advice and nasiha and da'wah to our leaders, to our military folks, to our politicians, to unite. I'm with that. But I'm just not going to sit here and say this is Egypt's fault and Jordan's fault and this fault and that fault, knowing that when I've been to those countries, and I haven't been to Egypt, but any other countries in the region, and I've seen the regular people from which the military is recruited and how their obedience to their military orders goes over their obedience to the Quran and what Allah has forbid to harm the Muslim. There is the problem that we're not addressing. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.